Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. The best character in the MCU? She's known by many names, but no matter what you call her, there's no secret to anyone that she's likely the character rising up the fan popularity list the fastest among Marvel fans, as she 100% deserves. Every instance we've seen her has been show-stopping. Age of Ultron, the scene where she makes Tony see the death of his friends, the return of the Chitauri, Steve choking out his final words, "You could have saved us." Pure unbridled heartbreak for me as a viewer. I remember daydreaming about that specific scene for months after watching the movie, and even hearing it now, it brings me chills. Captain America: Civil War. Her guilt over the disaster in Lagos, dealing with the conflicting feelings about her powers, the start of her love with Vision. That movie has a special place in my heart, and she causes the conflict that makes that movie what it is to me. Infinity War. The scene where Black Widow and Okoye are protecting her. That is by far the best girl power scene in the whole finale. Her being asked to kill the man that she loves. She's the only one that can do it. The fate of the world is on her shoulders. Her losing everything, including her own life, in the span of one movie. Endgame, 3 lines. You took everything from me. I don't even know who you are. You will. Emotionally, very little can compare to it, although Wanda Vision definitely can. It would not be an exaggeration if I said that I could talk about that show for hours, and I will be talking about it and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness for most of the video, so I won't be doing an intro for them here. But anyways, no matter what scene you're talking about, she is a character that you cannot help but cheer for. And here is your spoiler warning, because I will be talking about the ending of Multiverse of Madness and the stuff that happens in it, so if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, maybe come back to this video. That also goes for Wanda Vision, Endgame, Infinity War. Basically any movie Wanda's in, I'll probably be talking about it here, so if you just don't want to get spoiled about Wanda as a whole, then maybe watch the movies and then come back here. Now, one thing about me is that I am an absolute sucker for a good tragic backstory. My favorite characters in media are the ones with the heartbreaking origins, to say the least, and my main Paramay has what I believe to be the most perfected tragic backstory that you can. So yeah, that's kind of my thing. But as a not at all qualified tragic backstory analyst, Wanda has a really, really well executed tragic backstory. She was never a villain simply because the story needed a villain. We see what we went through from her childhood in Sokovia to having to wait beside a bomb, waiting for it to kill her like it killed her parents. Like I'd say that is pretty valid reasoning for wanting to target Tony Stark and by proxy the rest of the Avengers, and also make you accept being a Hydra experiment to gain superpowers to help achieve that goal because you're a traumatized child. Like, it all makes sense. It all makes sense, and I love that it all makes sense. And it also makes sense watching her become the hero that she came to be. We know that she is a very family-oriented person now, but I think it was very clear from the beginning that she cared a lot about her brother. And seeing how both her and her brother bonded with Clint Barton during Age of Ultron, it would 100% make sense why the two of them would be pulled towards the hero's side, because that's a family that they want more than being a weapon. We saw from the beginning how Wanda cares more about family than she does about a mission or a goal. And that is what makes it all the more tragic. Not only her sensing her brother dying, but her brother dying to save the new father figure that they have in their lives, and a kid, a child who just wanted to be reunited with his mother, and not that being Quicksilver also being reunited with his mother. So that makes the second time that her family has been cruelly ripped away from her. But she stays with the Avengers. The Avengers provide her a family again, something that had been cruelly ripped away from her twice now. Then Civil War happens and Mommy and Daddy separate, leaving the family she was hopeful for in shambles again. So if we're counting, that's 3 times that her family has left her alone to deal with her own feelings of guilt and grief. Because she started the conflict that made them all fight in the first place, and we see how guilty she feels for the explosion happening, and she thinks it's all her fault anyway, so I don't think it's that far of a stretch to assume that she believes she caused the rift in the Avengers, since it was the explosion that brought up the Sokovia Accords, which broke them up in the first place. But you know what? Hey, whatever. She gets over it with the help of the one person that has been by her side since he was born. She creates her own family with Vision. She made her own place to belong, since the people that she was supposed to have a family with were unavailable, Civil War and all that. And then she's told in Infinity War that she needs to be the one to ruin her own family, for the sake of the entire world. If she doesn't do it, Thanos wins. So not only does she have to kill the man that she loves, When everybody else is brought back to life at the end of Endgame, he's not. She is truly alone again, with nothing but the plans that they made together, and that just drives the knife so much deeper into my heart as a viewer. And that leads us into Wanda Vision. She makes a family with the one thing that she can control entirely, her powers. Because every other thing in her life that has made her existence so heartbreaking were things that were out of her control. And she's happy. Until she loses that too, and gains some more family trauma through the whole thing. And also has a taste for knowing how looking out for herself may make her a villain, but it also makes her way happier than the whole hero thing. She doesn't really have time to deal with her grief of losing her family for the nth time. Before her new powers, she can hear the cries of her children for her, the children she loves more than anything, calling out to her from across the multiverse. And I'm not a parent, but I don't think I could move on either after hearing that. So we reach the conclusion of the story thus far, where she travels across the multiverse to find her children, is thwarted by America when she opens a portal to the universe with her children in it, and the whole end of Multiverse of Madness happens. And that is how I see Wanda's story so far. She is a woman who wants to belong, and yet her family has been forcefully taken from her at least 5 times. More, depending on what you count. Being wanted is a desire that is very easy for viewers to relate to, and it makes it easy for us to want her to be happy, since everything out of her control is actively working against her for almost the entirety of the franchise. And part of why all of this has been so impactful on me is Disney Plus Marvel shows have not missed. Every one of them has kept me more engaged than most TV shows do, but 2 rows miles above the rest for me. WandaVision, duh, and Moon Knight. Both of these shows had me daydreaming so violently that I reached new heights of self-destructiveness, and it's not me bragging about that behavior, it's awful, but usually it's also a measure of how engaged in a story I am. The scale typically goes something like this. On the low side of the scale, I'm so disinterested that I'm daydreaming about a completely different paracosm altogether. I don't even know how to fix the story with my daydreams. In the mid to low range, the story isn't engaging, but I can fix it in my head. In the mid to high range, the story is engaging and I'm fully invested, usually daydreaming about the story afterwards. I'll leave the story feeling like a character or a para in that universe. Then there's the high level. There is no para, there is no daydream, just a broken brain that can only replay the most impactful moments over and over again until they drive me crazy, and a useless body accompanied by a selection of symptoms such as inability to stay still, nausea, loss of appetite, extreme dissociation, the inability to look at my own face or body in a mirror, and other not fun things of that nature occur. Thankfully, I can only recall 3 moments that have ever fit into the high category, and WandaVision episode 4 and Moon Knight episode 5 are 2 of them. There is a difference between the two, and that is why, despite my earlier praise, I actually think Moon Knight is my favorite Marvel show and not WandaVision, and I'm going to explain that here. Moon Knight was fun and exciting. There was weight to the scenes that carried weight. It didn't feel like characters were going to survive because of plot armor. It felt like there was real risk of death. Even if that wasn't the case, the tension was perfect. The characters were believable and amazing to watch. As a villain, I loved Harrow. Couldn't tell you much about him, but I enjoyed watching him all the same. Layla, strong, kicks butt, still in a relationship. She's such an inspiration, and as a hopeless romantic myself, I love seeing when amazing, independent women like her can still have romance in their lives. Mark and Steven. They're the reason that episode 5 makes it as high as it does on my scale. Now, I do not have dissociative identity disorder, and this next statement is not about how Marvel represented DID, because that's not my place to talk about it, but the editing of how they portrayed dissociative identity disorder did help my enjoyment of it to my maladaptive daydreaming brain. I think that only seeing when Steven fronts in episode 1 was a really cool decision, and it made me really, really excited for episode 2. The mental hospital kept me questioning what was real, and Dr. Harrow's surprisingly wise words were actually really impactful. The way that Marvel depicted all of that on screen was really, really attractive to my maladaptive daydreaming brain. And WandaVision shared a lot of those elements that made it engaging for me to watch as well. The switching between her reality and actual reality was done beautifully, and the cracks in her world breaking through killed me, but in a different way. In WandaVision, the pain wasn't entertaining. It was personal. WandaVision was a show that made me confront my own maladaptive daydreaming in a way that I never had before. And not because it was the first ever high ranking on the scale I mentioned before, or because it had a paracosm that took control of my life, but because I saw myself on that screen. For the first time in my entire life, I was looking at a movie character on screen and I didn't have a para to hide behind. I didn't see Bailey or Andy or Rio. I didn't see myself in Wanda's shoes. I saw the raw and true me. All the pretense that I've been using my entire life to ensure fiction was always a reliable escape was stripped from me, and it was Megan that I was watching. And that scared me more than anything else I had faced when it comes to this coping mechanism, this addiction, and it's still terrifying. And at the time, I didn't like thinking about it, so I didn't. I daydreamed instead, but then I go and watch Multiverse of Madness, and I'm forced to confront it again. Can I say that Wanda Maximoff is a maladaptive daydreamer? No. No, I can't. But based on my experience with it and what is portrayed on the screen, I can say that her experience with escapism is very, very similar to how I use maladaptive daydreaming. But the difference between me and Wanda Maximoff is that she is the most powerful being in the universe and can make her dreams a reality, while I can't. Or at least she can make them as real as any paracosm can be. Watching Wanda Vision was watching a maladaptive daydreamer with the power that every maladaptive daydreamer wants. The ability to live in their paracosm, to be with their paras, to be truly happy while taking refuge in fantasy. Watching Wanda Vision was watching myself slowly lose control of my perfect, controllable world. And it caused a full breakdown. The emotion of the night I watched episode 4 is something I hope I never have to experience again. I watched it with my family and ran up to my room and had probably the worst episode of maladaptive daydreaming I've ever had to date. All of my usual tricks to keep myself from daydreaming didn't work. I journaled until my brain ran out of things to say. I refused to listen to music. Nothing worked. In Multiverse of Madness, it is said that Scarlet Witch is the most powerful being in the multiverse, and she's an all-powerful god, basically. She could destroy the multiverse if she wanted to. She is more than an Avengers-level threat, and given the fact that the official roster of Avengers is a bit up in the air right now, there's not much stopping her from gaining complete control, if she wanted it. She told Doctor Strange and Wong that she was being reasonable, and I genuinely believe that she was. All she wanted to do with her seemingly infinite power was to kill 2 people, America Chavez and a version of herself. Then she would be happy with her children and leave the multiverse alone. She can live with her children forever, and that's that. Avengers level threat neutralized. 2 people in return for the whole multiverse's safety. I don't think I'm that crazy to think that that is reasonable. And it may be my soft spot for her, but I believe that she wouldn't go back on what she said. Really, she's just a scared little kid who has found her place in the world and wants to stay there. Is that really so wrong of a desire? Her family and friends are all dead or otherwise unreachable, so who does she really have left? Strange, Clint. He's got Kate now, and he hasn't really shown any interest in her anymore. Monica Rambeau? Maybe. But that's about it. That's not much of a life for her, is it? Either way, it doesn't really matter in the end, because whatever her plan was to be happy with her family, whether she had secret world domination plans, or whether the Avengers could reach her and bring her back to the side of good, they're all questions that will never be answered, as far as the movie wants us to believe, because she's dead. It's definitely not just a way to free Agatha for the show that she has been confirmed to be getting, and Wanda's 100% dead. Because, as in every Marvel movie, every character that dies stays dead. But anyway, she's not just dead. She's been humiliated. I know Multiverse of Madness was supposed to be a horror movie, but I was not expecting this movie to create an entirely new fear for me. I was terrified, horrified, when a lovable, multiverse-hopping America obliterated her dreams into flakes of fleeting snow blowing down the cliffs of Mount Wundagore. Okay, so the key part about maladaptive daydreaming, or at least my daydreaming, is the fact that while you aren't in control of the plot necessarily, if something you don't like happens, whether it goes against the characters too much, it isn't interesting enough, or you just simply forgot how you got to a certain part in the story, you can just rewind and replace. Like, imagine you're watching a movie that's like solid 7 out of 10, and the one scene comes along that just doesn't work with the rest of the movie. You get what the director was going for, what the impact was supposed to be, but it just wasn't executed well. Daydreams are like that too, except you can just try again. You can just say, should have said to the whole scene, and you're back in the theater watching it again for the first time as if time rewinded. This time the scene's better, it's still not perfect, so you try again and again and again until you spent 2 hours replaying a 10-minute scene to finally get the perfect product. The plot wasn't something you created, but your subconscious knows best what makes your brain happy, and it slowly adds the missing pieces, and it's always in your control in that regard. Because your brain doesn't betray you, it's a coping mechanism that your brain created to keep you functioning, so it'll only show you things that you like. It won't show you things that you don't like. And the whole appeal of maladaptive daydreaming is that you can excel in a world of your creation instead of just functioning with a mind, body, and soul that wants to escape into a home that doesn't exist. Except for Wanda, it exists. Until America made her kids fear her. Watching this scene made me feel like my entire world was collapsing in on itself. I'd say I'm a movie character empath when I watch any mid to high tier movie. This is Wanda Maximoff, my biggest challenge to my daydreaming to date. I don't know how other people with or without maladaptive daydreaming felt when watching this scene, but when I say I would have dropped a building on myself too if my parents rejected me in the way that they did to her, I would only be slightly exaggerating. I never had thought about my parents hating me, fearing me, wishing I didn't exist. But here we are. And I couldn't even think about it at all in the theater because all of my focus had to be on keeping my breathing steady so I didn't end up with Wanda Vision episode 4, number 2, The Electric Boogaloo, in the movie theater. Wanda Maximoff seems like a character sent from some higher power to make me suffer through watching the consequences of my own actions when it comes to daydreaming as often as I do. It's being forced to watch the reality of what would happen if I ever had the power that I wanted to have when it comes to this addiction. Wanda's strong, but still feminine. She has undefined magic powers that can adapt to whatever scenario she needs. She's the best costume I've ever seen. She's beautiful, has children, is still a loving mother while not giving up her power. She's the ability to create fake realities and travel to any universe that she wants. She is literally a bullet point list of everything good about all of my parames put together. She is the me I wish to be since I was a kid. And yet she's a villain. And she deserves to be a villain. She's in the wrong. However, the part of me that got me into this whole maladaptive daydreaming mess idolizes her to no end, and as of this moment, that part is winning control of my life. That's why I'm here talking about it in the first place, because maladaptive daydreaming is the problem in my life, just like it's my belief that's one of the seemingly infinite problems in hers. When it comes to representation for maladaptive daydreaming in the media, it's not that common since not many people know about it anyway, and I feel like she's the best we have as of right now. And that's why so many of us are here and talking about it so that we can have better representation and representation that isn't a villain in her own story. And who knows, maybe one day either Wanda will actually have the title Maladaptive Daydreamer or another character will have that title. But that day is not today, so I'll keep cheering on the little daydreamer that could from this side of the movie screen. And I will continue to work on myself so that the day she does make her return, I will be able to watch her in a movie without feeling the need to hide from the truths that she shows me. Thank you for taking another step with me on my never-ending journey, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!